Imagine international spies sitting in some, underground bunker, completely ignoring major defense contractors, and instead furiously trying to hack into a 10-person accounting firm in Queens, or like maybe a local medical clinic.
It sounds like a movie, right? But it's actually happening.
Exactly. Today we're explaining why your local business might be exactly what global cyber armies are looking for. Welcome to the It Factor, where Jemmy and I exploring a new blog post by Mr. Len Kaplan, CEO of CDML, a managed service provider in Queens, NY, offering network management, voice over IP, unified communications as a service, cybersecurity, compliance, infrastructure as a service, cloud solutions, and Microsoft 365 and Azure solutions. If you're a small business owner or manage IT for a growing organization, this episode is for you.
It really is. And we're venturing into some incredibly fascinating, albeit slightly unsettling territory today.
Yeah, unsettling is definitely the word.
We're unpacking a piece from Mr. Kaplan titled The Hidden Victims of Cyber Espionage.
And that is quite the list of services we just ran through in the introduction, right?
Yeah.
It really highlights just how complex a modern IT infrastructure actually is.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many moving parts.
But the topic we're diving into today takes all of that technical complexity and just wraps it in a real-world thriller. Because when you and I hear a phrase like cyber espionage, I mean, our brains immediately go straight to the movies.
Oh, for sure. You picture like James Bond or government secrets stored on some glowing flash drive.
Right. High-level spy games playing out between superpowers. It feels like something that only happens to billionaires or presidents or top-secret military contractors.
Which makes sense because human nature makes us want to compartmentalize threats.
Yeah.
We naturally assume that, because a local business doesn't hold classified state secrets, it's effectively invisible to international hackers.
But the reality we are unpacking today is going to completely flip that script. We're going to reveal why small local businesses, the ones operating right in your neighborhood, are actually getting caught in the crossfire of these massive global operations.
Because, as Len Kaplan's article points out, relying on that kind of compartmentalization is a really dangerous illusion.
Definitely.
To really understand why a local business is at risk, we first have to zoom all the way out.
Yeah.
We have to examine what the major global players are actually doing online right now.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the geopolitical shift happening in the digital space right now is wild. We aren't just talking about lone wolves in basements trying to guess passwords anymore.
No, not at all. We are looking at massive, coordinated campaigns backed by major nation states.
And what's really interesting to me is that they don't all want the same thing. I always assumed the motive was universally just, steal secrets, but they actually have very different, highly specific strategic objectives.
Yeah, the diversification of their motives is really the key to understanding the modern threat landscape. Instead of viewing them just as traditional spies, it's more accurate to view them as massive organizations utilizing the internet to achieve national interests.
Right. So, if we look at the strategic breakdown.
Well, the reports show that Russian cyber campaigns, for example, they're heavily focused on targeting government agencies and critical infrastructure.
Which aligns with traditional espionage, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a huge part of their modern strategy involves intentionally disrupting organizations that support their geopolitical adversaries. Their goal often isn't even theft. It's simply to create instability, friction, and chaos.
So it's weaponized disruption. But then you contrast that with China, and their strategy seems to be the complete opposite of causing immediate chaos.
Oh, yeah. The contrast there is stark.
The article highlights that China is playing an incredibly patient long game. They aren't trying to break servers or lock you out of your computers loudly.
Right. They are focused on long-term espionage designed to remain completely undetected inside a network for months, or, sometimes even years.
Wow. Years.
Yeah. And consider what they're actively hunting for while they sit quietly in those networks. Intellectual property, proprietary research, emerging technology, healthcare information, and just vast amounts of telecommunications data.
So it's about building economic and strategic advantages over the next several decades. Economic dominance just as much as military dominance.
Exactly. It's an industrial scope of data collection.
Then you look at Iran, and the insights here show a different approach entirely. Iran is increasingly utilizing cyber operations right alongside the real-world geopolitical conflicts.
The integration of physical and digital conflict is definitely accelerating there.
Yeah, they are specifically targeting organizations that support governments, healthcare sectors, and critical infrastructure. It reads less like espionage and more like cyber warfare, acting as, an immediate extension of physical tension.
And then we have to discuss North Korea, which operates in a paradigm almost entirely its own.
Right, because of the heavy international sanctions.
Exactly. They're certainly conducting standard intelligence gathering, but they uniquely treat cyber operations like a massive corporate enterprise designed for state revenue generation.
So they've turned to the digital world to literally fund their government.
Yes, they are heavily involved in widespread cybercrime, cryptocurrency theft, ransomware campaigns, and incredibly sophisticated social engineering attacks.
That is just staggering when you lay it all out. A
Yeah.
government utilizing ransomware to fund itself totally changes the entire threat model. It makes me think of these nation states almost like massive organized crime syndicates that have aggressively diversified their portfolios.
That's a great way to put it.
They aren't just robbing the proverbial central banks anymore. They're running these complex, varied rackets from data theft to extortion that bleed out into everyday commerce.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, despite all these wildly different geopolitical goals, whether it's disruption, intellectual property theft, conflict extension, or direct revenue generation, all four of these nations share one defining, dangerous characteristic.
Which is?
Their campaigns rarely remain confined to a single government agency or a massive enterprise target. The attacks inevitably ripple outward.
Right. And because of how deeply interconnected our modern digital supply chain is, collateral damage isn't just a possibility, it's a guaranteed feature of their operations.
Exactly.
And that ripple effect is exactly what brings this massive global issue right to the doorstep of the listener. Because, it is so easy for you to hear about global telecommunications, data theft, or international crypto heists and think, well, I run a mid-sized accounting firm, or I manage IT for a local shipping company, so this still doesn't apply to me.
Well, people think that all the time.
But since these global campaigns are rippling outward, we have to look at the actual mechanics. Like, how exactly does a small local organization end up on a nation-state's radar?
The mechanics of how this happens are crucial to understand, and the answer lies entirely in the supply chain. We can call this the stepping stone strategy.
Stepping stone strategy, okay.
Yeah. Nation-state attackers are highly resourced, but they're also pragmatic. They know that trying to break directly into a heavily fortified Fortune 500 company or a major government defense contractor is difficult, time-consuming, and highly likely to trigger alarms.
So they rarely walk up and kick down the front door.
More accurately, they look for someone who already has a key to the front door and they steal it from them.
Oh, wow. So they go after the vendors.
Exactly. They actively compromise software providers, cloud platforms, managed service providers, and telecommunications companies. These are the trusted foundational services that connect thousands of other organizations together.
And a single successful compromise at that foundational level can ripple across an entire supply chain in an instant, giving the attacker access to hundreds of secondary targets.
That's it. Len Kaplan specifically mentions the kinds of small organizations that become these hidden victims. We're talking about medical practices, law firms, accounting offices, manufacturers, and local nonprofits.
But let's pause here, because if I'm listening to this, I'm probably looking around my small office right now and laughing.
Right.
I run a 10-person accounting firm in Queens, or maybe a local nonprofit. We barely have a budget for upgraded laptops. Why on earth would a government-backed hacker waste a single keystroke on us? What's the actual value to them?
It's the most common pushback in the industry, and it really gets to the very heart of the misunderstanding around modern cyber espionage.
So why did they do it?
The why is actually twofold. First, from a purely tactical standpoint, that small firm is simply the easiest door to open. They almost certainly lack the massive cybersecurity resources of a Fortune 500 company.
Right. A local nonprofit doesn't have a dedicated floor of security analysts monitoring their network 24/7.
Exactly. They're completely focused on just running their actual mission or business, and attackers count on that.
That makes sense.
But the second and much more important reason is that the small business is a trusted stepping stone. Think about the concept of digital trust.
Okay.
That 10-person accounting firm holds valuable financial data, sure, but they also likely have automated billing integrations or trusted, authenticated access directly into their much larger clients' networks.
Oh, I see.
That local medical practice has dedicated vendor portals connecting them to massive national healthcare networks. That small manufacturer is a single link in a supply chain that eventually leads to a major defense contractor.
Ah, I see where this is going. The attacker isn't trying to break down the massive defense contractor's firewall from the outside. They are compromising the small vendor so they can just walk right through the front door using a trusted credential.
Yes, the mechanism there is what is really terrifying. Imagine a local law firm that handles contract reviews for a major corporation. If an attacker compromises a single email account at that small law firm, they don't just stop there. They wait, they observe the communication patterns, and then they send an email with a malicious payload directly to the major corporate client.
Because that email comes from a known, trusted vendor domain.
And from an active conversation thread. It sails right past the corporation's million-dollar threat protection systems.
Because the system assumes the communication is friendly.
Exactly. The small organization itself may never have been the intended target. They just happen to be the path of least resistance to get to the real target.
Wow. So they are literally being used as a bridge or like a digital weapon against their own clients. That reframes the entire concept of risk.
It really does.
If you are listening right now and finding this breakdown of the current threat landscape helpful, and if it's changing how you view your own business's place in the digital ecosystem, please take a second to click the thumbs up button for us. It really helps us know what kind of deep dives you want to hear more of.
It absolutely helps us tailor the show. And I know that the idea of having a sophisticated nation-state using your business as a stepping stone sounds overwhelming.
It sounds terrifying.
Right, it feels like an unwinnable scenario. You might assume that defending against a government-backed cyber army would require some kind of, futuristic, artificial intelligence-driven defense grid that costs millions of dollars.
Yes, but this is exactly where we get to the encouraging news in Mr. Kaplan's post. Because the reality is actually much more grounded.
It is.
Defending against these massive global threats uses the exact same foundational practices that stop everyday, run-of-the-mill ransomware and phishing attacks.
The fundamentals of good cybersecurity scale remarkably well, regardless of who is knocking at your door.
Okay, so what are the fundamentals?
Well, the article lays out a vital checklist, and we need to walk through the mechanics of why these specific things work so effectively. Priority 1. You have to keep your operating systems, applications, and network equipment fully updated.
We hear do your updates all the time, and it's so easy to tune out, but I always try to elevate this past just, locking your doors. We often talk about the old castle and moat security model, where you build a strong perimeter and assume everything inside is safe.
Right, which doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. Modern security requires a zero-trust mindset. Software updates are literally patching the known structural holes in your building before someone can crawl through them.
That structural analogy is spot on. You're systematically removing the obvious documented points of entry. Next on the checklist is requiring multi-factor authentication, or MFA, for all business accounts.
Passwords alone simply do not cut it anymore.
Especially when we're talking about compromised supply chains and credential theft.
If we stick with the physical building analogy, MFA is like realizing that just having a key to the front door isn't enough. It's having a security guard who actually checks your ID every single time you try to open a door, even if you're holding the right key.
Okay.
Just because an attacker bought your password on the dark web doesn't mean they can prove they are the person who's supposed to be holding it.
And that second layer of verification stops a massive percentage of automated supply chain attacks in their tracks. Speaking of human verification, the third priority is training your employees to recognize phishing and social engineering.
Because, as we saw with North Korea's tactics, human manipulation is often the most effective and cheapest tool an attacker has.
Your employees are literally your frontline defense. If they know how to spot a fake invoice, or if they know to verbally confirm a strange wire transfer request, they stop the attack before it ever even interacts with your technical firewalls.
The human firewall is critical.
It really is. The fourth point on the checklist is regularly testing your backups and recovery procedures. Notice the key operative word there is testing.
Oh, testing, not just having them.
Right. Having an automated backup system running in the background is one thing. Knowing for an absolute fact that you can rapidly restore your entire business from those backups after a ransomware incident is another entirely. If you haven't tested a restore, you don't actually know if you have backups.
That is a terrifying but necessary reality check. And finally, the article stresses that you must monitor your systems for unusual activity and have the ability to respond quickly. It really just comes down to consistent, vigilant hygiene.
Yes, cybersecurity isn't a single magic product you buy off a shelf, plug in, and forget about. It's an ongoing, daily practice.
But why does basic hygiene stop advanced state-sponsored hackers?
Well, the underlying psychology of the attackers is important to remember here. Threat actors, even the highly advanced nation-state ones, are fundamentally opportunistic.
They're looking for an easy payday.
Exactly. They operate on a return on investment model. They're looking for the path of least resistance. When you proactively apply these proving safeguards, you remove the easy opportunity.
So you force them to work harder.
You force them to spend more time, more money, and more effort to compromise you. You make your organization a much harder target. And often, changing that math alone is enough to make them move on to an easier victim.
You essentially price them out of attacking you. And staying educated on these fundamentals is a huge part of maintaining that strong posture. That is exactly why it is so beneficial that Len Kaplan and the team at CDML publish new blog posts every Tuesday and Thursday.
It's a fantastic resource to help you stay informed on exactly these kinds of practical, evolving strategies. Consistent education is the foundation of a good defense.
Okay, so knowing the fundamentals is one thing. We know we need diligent software updates, multi-factor authentication, employee training, tested backups, and active monitoring.
Right.
But let's be realistic about the listener's day-to-day life. Finding the time, the deep expertise, and the resources to actually implement and manage all of that consistently, especially as a busy business owner or an IT manager wearing a dozen different hats, is a completely different story.
Oh, it's a massive operational challenge. You cannot expect a small business owner to suddenly become a dedicated cybersecurity analyst on top of actually running their company.
Right.
And that's exactly where specialized local expertise becomes a business necessity rather than a luxury.
This is where the article details how CDML steps in to bridge that gap. They help organizations build a defense strategy that actually fits their specific size, their operational needs, and their budget.
Yeah, they aren't trying to force a massive one-size-fits-all enterprise package onto a local law firm. They focus on practical, layered security services.
That layered approach is the core of modern defense. CDML provides the proactive monitoring required to catch that unusual activity at 2 in the morning on a Sunday when your team is asleep.
And they offer advanced endpoint protection, which secures the actual laptops and devices your team is using with behavioral analysis, not just outdated antivirus scans.
Plus, they run the ongoing security awareness training for your employees, and they take on the burden of that crucial backup verification.
So they're systematically and professionally checking off every single box on that fundamental checklist we just went through,
Right.
so the business owner doesn't have to.
But let me ask you a highly practical question.
Sure.
If I am an IT manager or a business owner listening to this right now, I might be thinking, well, I have some antivirus software installed. Maybe we turned on MFA for our main email accounts last year. But if I'm being honest, I don't really know where my security currently stands holistically.
That's incredibly common.
Right. So how do I figure that out without feeling completely overwhelmed by all the technical jargon?
You're touching on the core issue most organizations face, which is the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And it is exactly why CDML offers comprehensive cybersecurity assessments.
Oh, okay.
You shouldn't have to guess or hope that your business is protected against a stepping stone attack. An assessment is designed to systematically identify your specific vulnerabilities and blind spots before an attacker finds them and turns them into a full-blown incident.
It takes the guesswork out of the equation. You aren't just throwing money at random software subscriptions and hoping for the best. You're getting a clear, actionable roadmap of exactly where you are vulnerable and how to fix it efficiently.
Exactly.
If you want to take that next step and get that kind of clarity for your own business, you should visit cdml.com. You can subscribe to the blog to keep learning every Tuesday and Thursday, and you can contact the team directly right there to schedule a cybersecurity assessment today.
Bringing in a partner to evaluate your defenses before an incident occurs is honestly the most proactive, responsible step any business leader can take today.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought, a bit of a paradigm shift to chew on.
Let's hear it.
Throughout this entire conversation, we've been talking a lot about protecting your own business, securing your own data, and safeguarding your own bottom line. But in today's hyper-connected, interwoven digital world, your cybersecurity isn't just about protecting yourself anymore.
No, it really has evolved into a fundamental community responsibility.
It has. By taking the time to secure your own network, You're actively ensuring that you do not become the weak link that allows your partners, your trusted vendors, or your larger clients to be compromised.
You're protecting the entire economic ecosystem you operate within.
Exactly. You might never be the primary target of a global cyber espionage campaign, but you absolutely have the power to stop yourself from being used as their weapon.
That is a powerful way to reframe the conversation. Implementing good security is simply practicing good citizenship in the digital age.
We're Jemmy and Nye. Thanks for listening. Till next time.